This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And with me today is a special guest who we've done a number of interviews before, and this is a first for us. I'm using a little different technology, and you'll see why in a minute. But without further ado, I'd like to invite Maj Soueidan from GeoInvesting.com. Maj, welcome to SNN.Network. Thanks for joining me today.
Bobby, thank you for making this happen. I was going stir crazy here, so I needed someone to talk to. So it works out great.
Oh, perfect, dude. I love being. Hey, listen, I love being the guy that you could talk to while he's going stir crazy. You know, look, we've spent enough time in Vegas to know that it always results in something fun.
Yeah.
So, first things first, have to ask, how are you holding up? How's the family? Everybody safe and sound?
Yeah. I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My parents and my brother are in Philadelphia. So they had a lockdown. I think last week maybe. We just got our lockdown order today, midnight. It's going to hit. So, but it's been relatively quiet here. I just go out for a jog once in a while. Take a walk. Go to the supermarket.
Yeah, I'm about to do the same right after this. But I see you're prepared in the background. You got your mask. I mean, you're good.
Oh, yeah, I haven't worn it yet, but I definitely have it. I think it's more restrictive for me. I get a little claustrophobic with it on, so I take this thing off.
Fair enough. You got to make sure that thing is fitted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So let's dig into a little stock talk. Maj, you've seen quite a few cycles in your career now. And I think you actually just published an article recently talking about long-term versus short-term investing in microcaps. And believe it or not, I've done a number of Wall Street views now since the outbreak occurred, and we haven't really gotten into specifically how to approach investing in microcaps right now during this crisis. And look, I know you're a growth plus value investor. You kind of juggle both hands depending on the situation, but you tend to be more of a long-term investor. But, I also really want to talk about some of what your short-term strategy might be. So first things first, let's dig into that long-term strategy. How do you handle times like these when you're looking at microcaps from a long-term perspective?
Easier said than done, first of all. I mean, we all want to say we're long-term investors. I was actually talking to someone yesterday, and we always talk about managing our losses, managing our risk, right? But it's also about managing your gains too. So when you have times like this, you have a little powder on the side to be able to, maybe even, pay the bills if you're a full-time investor. Use some of your dry powder to buy some stocks as they're falling, things like that. But the strategy for me really doesn't change much, just in terms of you have to be emotionally stronger to be able to have confidence in your investment. So part of the reason I used to be a shorter term investor when I was younger, when I started out investing, I was still a fundamental investor, but my time horizon was shorter than it is now. Right now, my longest holding is 13 years. Has been 13 years in the stock. Back when I started, in the 80s and the 90s, maybe a year and a half was my, longest thing. And then the environment was different then too, for smaller companies. But what I learned along the way is that as I forced myself to invest longer term, I had to really do a lot more fundamental research. So basically, because you might have to be involved holding stocks through cycles, through unexpected times, even through managing hiccups, and you want to understand if you have the confidence to stay with the company. So right now is a good example of that going on. So it definitely puts you in a better position to have more confidence in what you're holding while you're seeing these stocks maybe fall 20, 30, 40, 50%. It's not easy to be a long-term investor. It's not easy to be a trader too. They both have their different challenges. And we wrote an article about this, like you said earlier, and we don't say that in trading, day trading is bad or short-term investing is bad, or there's anything wrong with people who do that. Our philosophy, though, is to make long-term investing the core of what we do, and trade around it once in a while when we have an opportunity. So we've done some trading right now, but really to me, it's been, do I want to add positions that I'm really comfortable with, that I already know well? Do I just want to add to those? It's tempting to want to add new stocks because you see, all these stocks falling, and wow, there's some great value out there. But right now the market's moving so quickly that I might have time to do the research. So I've already done a lot of research on some stocks that I already own that I love, and maybe I don't even own enough of, or I already sold some, now they come down and I want to add to those positions again. I'm looking at it that way.
Gotcha.
But it's still challenging though to watch your stocks just crumble, and it's, you know, it's easy to say, to tell someone to be a long-term investor, but when it comes down to it, it's still very challenging.
Absolutely.
But I didn't really do much panic selling this time around, which shows a couple panic sells. They're already hurting me. they came back, but I was pretty good this time around.
Well, let's talk offline. We were doing some experimenting with screen sharing to kind of show what you're actually looking at, you know, and really how you're, you know, some of the companies that are on your watch list and whatnot. And this is not a, you know, look, we're not here to talk our book or anything, but at least, you know, I think our audience would love to see, you know, what you're looking at, how you're looking at it, you know. So do we want to wave the magic wand and hit the button and share that screen and show them how it's done?
It's very boring and very, you know, 1990 really for me. I haven't caught up. I don't have 20 screens here. But what I think we were talking about earlier, and I'll bring the screen up in a second. We were talking about, you know, when you're looking at a crisis like we are now with coronavirus and everything that's going on, like how do you approach that? And there's a temptation to want to maybe, many of us to go on with trade. Some of these names are very hype in nature. We see some of these names go crazy, right? You know, maybe go from 5 to 30 in a day or two. And, but you know, the way we look at it is we still, even when we're looking at that whole scenario, how this is all going to affect companies negatively or maybe positively, you know, how do we we still look at it from a long-term point of view. So we can look at the one bucket where, okay, here's stocks are just going to like potentially get really hurt from this thing for a long time. You know, we saw, okay, there's a bucket right there. These guys are just going to have a hard time for the next several years, maybe because business models are changing now. You know, the at-home thing, maybe they won't be able to pivot there, or maybe it takes away business from them, by competitors. So then another bucket that, all right, well, there's a temporary bucket. Those that will have a temporary kind of, you know, bump, maybe like Lake in this, like, well, let me see if I think I have Lake up here, LAKE. There's no organization. By the way, there's no organization to this whole thing here. So, it's just a bunch of symbols.
Listen, this is better than our last interview already. Remember, you were doing it on the iPhone, and we were talking about Form 4 filings, and I was holding up the magazine. So we're really stepping up our game right now.
Yeah. You know, so there was Lakeland. You know, so they make, you know, these guys make Hazmat.
Full disclosure.
Do not own the stock now.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it was funny but this is a great example of what we're talking about. So when we had the Ebola a problem with Obama, under Obama, I don't think, was it 2014? I can't remember when it was. The Ebola. We can look at it.
SARS was 2005.
Yeah.
And Ebola, I believe, I think it was in 2010 at home.
Well, maybe it was, yeah. So I had owned the stock at the time, actually, for other reasons, and just got lucky to be in it. But I was able to witness it. And there were, you know, then there was the APT, which is another stock. I don't own that. They make them, you know, actually I believe that mask back there.
and 95 max, yeah.
And you will see these charts. I mean, you know, the lake, let's pull Lake up. You know, had that big spike and then down. You saw the same thing happen in Ebola. So, you know, we have to look at these things that are happening on. So with Lake, is this particular event going to change their fortunes forever, or is it be a temporary thing where once it's over, it's back to business normal? And they've been having some operational issues in the past. So the stock has already come down from its highs, and I suspect that once this is all over, it'll be a whole different story for them. But so now there's companies that will have long-term trends that are already favorable to them improve potentially. So that might be like a home healthcare company. So you look at, you know, which one here is KRMD, which is the old symbol was REPR. This is the one I held for 13 years, by the way. So, and
still do, or
yeah, still own it. Yeah, still own it.
Come on, share your screen. People want to see the screen sharing.
Oh, sure. Shoot, I thought I was sharing it. Wait a second. Sorry, man. Lake was over here. So when I was referencing Lake, I'll just go back to it. Here was the LAKE, Lakeland, and the big spike up and then coming down again here, right?
Mhm.
And you'll see the same chart with a lot of these stocks. They're putting out press releases about how they're helping in the short term, at least.
Mhm.
And when we look at, and here's KRMD.
I mean, that's the crazy thing that, I was seeing the last 3-4 weeks too, is, you've seen a lot of these companies put out news and information saying, what they're doing to try and solve the issue. And, you'll see those crazy, like BioAmerica, I'm not a shareholder, but I think you probably saw that too, when I forget where it was at. I think it was in like the $2 range, and it spiked
250-ish.
250. Yeah. It spiked to, I think it did like what, over $11, maybe even more.
Well, I actually owned a little bit. I owned some of that. Luckily, it wasn't a situation we predicted. It went from 250 to I think the 6,
Mm-hmm.
and actually 250 maybe to 11 or 12 the first day, and then I think it hit 24 the second day of that big run. But now they did an offering. It's ready back down. So as an example, so BMRA this is a great. I'm glad you brought that up because BMRA. So here's that kind of chart, a little.
By the way, full disclosure, I'm not a shareholder in BioAmerica.
And neither am I right now. So this move, so they came out with a release talking about a coronavirus test that they might have, which is a 10-minute test. And even as good as that might be, we ascertain that there's so many other companies putting out tests. We don't know who's going to win, who's going to really come ahead in that battle, and we don't. How long is that really opportunity for a company going to be around once this issue kind of passes a little bit? So. We disclosed to our members that we sold the stock too when it had gone up. And we had bought this not maybe within the last 8-9 months for other reasons. If the stock comes back and down again, we might look at it again. But that's just issues. That's like a shorter term trend. And there's a lot of these companies that I think that are reporting the news regarding their participation in helping to solve the coronavirus crisis. A, they may be temporary, and B, you got to think, what is the financial impact really going to be of it? So there's Electrum, which I don't own, ELMD. I don't know if I can find it here somewhere. I think it was also right up here, which they make a smart vest technology to help with respiratory conditions. So they see the stock came down around $79, and it's popped the last few days over some speculation that or actually they put a thing on their website talking kind of about a smart vest and the coronavirus. So there may be a temporary fit for that company in terms of trying to help people who are suffering from the breathing problems with the coronavirus. But longer term, and when what will that opportunity be for them? It'll be back to business again, right? And if you look at the statistics, most people are recovering from this. It has a high recovery rate. So the patient pool, how big is it going to be really for them? That's how we look at this thing. And of course, that's just one company. There's several companies probably going to be fighting in that battle. And furthermore, ventilators are being made, and there may be some companies may offer their ventilators free, mm-hmm. just give them away, to help the crisis. So what we're looking for, Bobby, is like what company's going to be here for? What company's going to benefit from trends that long term, like home healthcare, for example. Mm-hmm. The home healthcare is going to be an even bigger push to that trend, because now we're seeing these hospitals are overburdened. They can't be able to fight a big coronavirus war. And so I believe that the home healthcare trend will continue to get strong. That's what KRMD is involved in. So I just been involved in this along. I know that, and that's why I brought it up. But yeah. So that's long term. It's all it comes out long term sort of thing. What stocks will have a short term effect in this thing, which ones will have long term and possibly be in a better position.
All right, so now let's go to the short term side of things. Clearly, look, there's money to be made here. In this market, it's highly volatile. As we've alluded to already, throughout this interview, there's a lot of companies that have been putting out news, saying that they have solutions to help solve this pandemic. So I mean, from your perspective, what if you had to have a short-term strategy in this market when looking at microcaps, how would you go about doing it?
Yeah, and look, I think by the way, I say, this is what we do. We make money here in the stock market, but that doesn't mean that we don't have compassion for what's going on here, right?
Of course. No, of course.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes people might think certain things, but look, it's unfortunate, but this is what we do, and we have to find these opportunities. And I think actually investing in these companies is a good thing. It's a good thing,
Great.
So yeah, so on the short term thing, the first short term strategy we're using really is trading around stocks we already own. So at one point, KRMD went, I think it dropped from maybe 1050 to maybe at 450, 425 on the drop, and I was incredible. So I think we might have traded some in the 5 area around our position when it had fallen like that. You see that big drop there, right? It was a capitulation day there. But so we're we're just looking at, can we pick off some of the stocks we love here that we have a core position to maybe make a few trades around that. And look, that's one bucket. The other one, okay, will we play LAKE or APT? I mean, we might nibble at some of those shorter term type of ELMD type of trades, but they won't be a large part of our portfolio. It'll be a much smaller bet. So it's based on sizing our position there. So we'll size those positions a lot smaller than we will our core holding kind of trades. So we're big about trading around our core and looking for these smaller opportunities around that if we see it. But I don't really enjoy it too much because
I know.
It's just and that's part of what I read about in the long-term investing article, because I'm almost forced to continue looking at my screen all day long. And I'm of the belief that the more decisions I have to make as an investor, buying and selling, the more mistakes I'm going to make. So, and it's a mindset too. And I used to do a little more trading years ago, and it gets you into a mindset where when you start doing bad, you become a little bit hesitant maybe in making investments. You trigger shy. So it just messes with the mind for me as a long-term investor. So I don't like to get into that thing. So I wrote this thing. I wrote it down, which was tough, but but I didn't do a lot of trading in this malaise. I did a few nip and tuck trades.
Right. So then here, I'll ask you a question then for let's say, look, you've been doing this a long time. You have your core positions. You even have your companies on your watch list where okay, if it gets down to this certain price, I might take a nibble even, what would you say to investors that, right now, or even who have been studying the market for maybe a year or so before they took some initial positions, but let's say they don't even have a watch list or didn't have a watch list going into this time period. What would you say to them that are like, damn, I got all this, I got some dry powder, I want in on the action. What should we do? I'm already going to guess your first answer is to say don't. But for those that will say, screw you, I'm just going to do it anyway, what should they do?
Of course, giving advice is a whole different story there, and a personal, based on a person by person basis, and we don't really do that. But
of course,
I would ask myself, look, okay, do I want to be a big cap guy, small cap guy? Do I want to buy the indexes? I mean, the indexes now, if you're just going to get in the market, I mean, they've fallen so hard that, why not try that? Even there's apparently some really good big cap companies out there too. They got really cheap. So some big caps wouldn't be we were just actually discussing CVS a few days ago internally. We don't own it yet. As maybe a big cap opportunity. So although we buy nanos and microcaps, we're looking at some bigger companies that look pretty appealing here. Mm-hmm. So I would focus on if there was me, I would say, okay, I would look at that stimulus bill, see maybe where that money might be going. Some of the trends we talked about here, home healthcare. Could I find some stocks over there that might look good, and some stocks I wanted to get into that I couldn't because they were too expensive. Now they're a lot cheaper. How you do your research dependent. You can run. I love momentum screens in times like this, because if I can find stocks that are doing well momentum wise for and in a bad market, and then I could maybe find some interesting things there. But the problem right now, a lot of momentum stocks when the markets went down, were a lot of these pump and dump, fly by night kind of things. But once in a while, you'll find one in there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, so I think with that, parting takes here, moving forward, I know you're, look, nobody knows what's going to happen. Especially looking at today's, what's today? Thursday, March 26th. We saw another record trading day after unemployment announcement of 3.28 million jobs, and yet we see the market go nuts, probably on the stimulus bill, so moving forward, your guess is probably as good as mine. What are some of the things you're looking out for?
Well, I'm looking of course, if you're talking about the what we're going through now is in terms of the coronavirus, how long it's going to last, who knows, right? But we have China as a kind of a measure, and I have people on the ground in China because we do a lot of China work here, and they're telling me it's business as usual there right now. So whatever you're hearing here about people trying to spread like these, conspiracy theories, like China's not doing well, China's not up, they're up and running. So this is true, but they handled it a lot different than we handled it. So I don't know how that's going to play out here. What I do know is that we're going to come out of it. It might take a little longer than it did in China, but I don't think the market's going to start valuing, they're not going to look at Q2 and Q3 anymore. The prices have come down so much. It's time to look at where 18 months from now, what's it going to look like? And if we believe that 18 months ago from now, a lot of these companies are going to be at least where they were before this crash happened, it's like a kid in a candy jar right now. So I was talking to somebody who was a short seller, and he was going short, getting his butt killed in this. And I'm like, what are you shorting stocks for now? Because you're shorting stocks on what's going to happen a quarter or two from now. No one's going to care about that anymore. It's all about, how are these companies still going to, now they're really like people are looking at 12 to 18 months out. Mm-hmm. And that's how I look at this. Now there's some stocks right now that you can buy, dirt cheap that might have fallen 60, 70%. That are going to look bad next 2 quarters, but they're going to look fantastic probably a year from now, back to where they were, if your research confirms that. So you're buying some incredible value on that, and that's a really good way of looking at it.
Gotcha. All right, with that, Maj, where can my audience go and find more information about you and GeoInvesting?
Yeah, just come to GeoInvesting.com, and you just come there. There's a 7-day free trial if you want to take advantage of it. We actually might be putting in a monthly trial soon, which I think will be very useful. And we allow, if you do become a member of Geo, you can always chat with us one-on-one on Skype or Zoom. We're doing a lot more of that these days. And I just hired 2 more people on the staff to help us go look for some more ideas. So it should be a real fun, active time the next few weeks here, a few months.
Awesome. And thank you again for joining me. And hey, man, I'm looking forward to having you on the podcast panel in a little less than a month. That should be fun.
Yeah, nice virtual. So that'll be a lot of fun.
All virtual, baby. Let's do it. All right. I'll talk to you soon, man. Stay safe.
Thanks, Bobby. Bye-bye.